Welcome to BeTheTalk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Anita Collins. Anita, are you ready to talk?
Absolutely.
Dr. Anita Collins is an award-winning Australian educator, academic, and researcher in the area of music education, particularly in the impact of music education on cognitive development. Anita is a communicator, a conduit between neuroscientific researchers, music educators, musicians, parents, and the general public, and she works to update our understanding of the purpose and benefits of music education to overall cognitive development and health. Dr. Anita Collins, welcome to the talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
Your talk is called What If Every Child Had Access to Music Education from Birth? What if? Wouldn't that be a great thing? I'm going to just take this right off the table because I want as many people as possible, including my conservatory classmates from back in the day, to share this and spread this message. A few years ago, there was a little bit of controversy when we talk about neuroscience and music education. It was something called the Mozart effect. And I want you to just kind of take this off the table. It has been, partially or completely debunked in terms of that particular work. And if you can do a better summary than I could, because I'm not even remembering, and it's the last interview of the day, I'd love for you to just kind of give your take on it and then explain some of your background, which really does, it's an interdisciplinary PhD that you have between, research of neuroscientific things and music. And I'll let you say that better than I can at this stage. So Anita, over to you.
Well, in the sort of the late, 1997, 98, there was a really sort of preliminary study done.
Oh, it was that long ago. It was 25 years ago.
It's
a long time.
It's really held on. So what they did is they looked at a group of, it was done in America, they did a group of college students, and they got some of them to listen to Mozart and then go and do a task. I think it was a spatial awareness task. And then they got another group not to listen to Mozart and then do the task. And what they found was those who listened to Mozart first completed the task better. It was a very preliminary study. It was a very short journal article. Somebody else kind of took that research and said, obviously listening to Mozart particularly makes you smarter. That what they've looked at, many studies have come and gone, can we replicate that? And they haven't found they've been able to. What they did find, however, is that listening to Mozart before you went and did a cognitive task put you in a better mood. Now, when you're in a better mood, you tend to approach things a bit more openly. You tend to try a little bit harder. You tend to not be worried about failing. And that's why they did the task better, not because they were smarter.
So it almost sounds like the Mozart effect was more about maybe mindfulness and getting into almost not a meditative state, but it was that kind of thing that led to the better results rather than classical music per se in that instance, and the unfortunate, very overzealous marketer that took someone else's limited research and blew it out and got a whole bunch of people preliminarily and prematurely excited about it. That's what it was all about.
And a lot of people say, it was terrible that they did this and they shouldn't have done it. For me, I view it as it was the first door that opened into this whole other field that I get to study. So I view it as a wonderful thing that we saw something's connected here with music and learning and feeling good and all that sort of other stuff. Let's investigate this further. What we just need to know is what they originally thought might have happened wasn't exactly what happened. And that's the state of this research. It's continually evolving and it's moving so quickly. We get one idea about something and then they research it and they go, oh no, it could be something else. So that's how exciting and how beautiful the brain is when it operates.
Yeah, well, Talk Universe, we wanted to clarify that piece because there really is. The good news is there's really great research, and Anita is right at the forefront of interpreting and simplifying some of that research. So tell us a little bit more of the more exciting things. We've cracked the human genome in the years since then, I believe, and there are all kinds of more credible ways to go about it. What are some of the top things that you're most excited about now?
Some of the top things, I mean, the most significant one, and the one that's been researched for the longest, is the connection between music and language. So understanding why it is that musically trained kids tend to be better at their language. They tend to acquire language earlier. They tend to read earlier. They tend to get really excited about new words, and they know how to use them. And they wanted to see if this was a connection between the two. And what we've actually found is that music processing and language processing are overlapping systems in our brain. So they're actually helping each other learn. So it actually tells us we're all musical from birth because we use music processing to actually learn how to speak the language. So that's one of the biggest ones and the most researched ones.
So the cognitive processes involved in language development are really almost superimposed or replicate or very, very similar to musical processes that the brain uses to be able to produce music. Is that a way of saying that?
Or even more than that, language is actually a subset of music. So at birth, we understand language as if it is music. We understand melody and rhythm, and that's all language really is. And then we use that music processing network to teach us how to actually use language after that. And then the language processing takes over. But it's where we begin at the very start, that we hear our mother and father's voice as if it was music.
Well, and this is a McFly moment for me, obvious Captain Obvious moment. You know, we call music the universal language, and it's because it's actually the other way around. So the music, you know, whether it's Shawshank Redemption, where they're playing and listening to the opera, the contraband opera record that someone blasts around, and everyone listens because we can all feel very similar feelings and be moved in very similar ways because of music, no matter what language we're speaking. So I'm just, hey, Talk Universe, don't mind me. I'm just having a Captain Obvious moment. I do have a music degree, but that was kind of a new one for me. So back to you, Anita. What's another thing that you're excited about, or anything else you'd like to extrapolate from that?
The next really big one is this group of functions called our executive functions. And that's a whole group of different functions, and they all live here in the front of our brain. And I like to call them all the functions we need to be a grown-up. It's all the things about paying attention, being able to understand how we're feeling, being able to understand how someone else is feeling, being able to make logical choices when our emotions are going in a different direction. Or it's like a huge number of things we have to do, planning, strategy, all of that stuff. And again, musically trained kids were found to have higher levels of executive function, and they were trying to figure out why. And as a classically trained musician, you'd know it's a discipline, and it's the same for jazz, and it's the same for all kinds of music. It's a discipline. You do a little bit of it every single day, and you get it more wrong than you get it right. You get frustrated, and you have to get over that frustration in order to move on. You have to deal with nerves and heightened sensitivity to things and still be able to perform. All of those natural parts of what it is to learn a musical instrument actually impact on how our brain functions, and our brain functions really, really effectively and grows and wires itself really well. So that's my personal favorite, because in the end, talking about, producing a human being, as a teacher, that's what I'm doing. I might be producing a musician, sure, but I'm producing a human being who can go out into the world and do the best things they possibly can. And learning music is a really important and effective way to make sure that happens.
Anita, what's your read on the state of music education right there in your homeland of Australia versus here in the United States, where we've had a lot of arts fundings cut, and we kind of exalt the math and the verbal SATs and teaching for the tests above all other things, it seems. Yeah. What's your take on all this?
We're in very similar situations, as is the UK as well. I think it's a misinformed view. I think we think that learning music is only for smart kids, and that's got correct. Smarter kids find it easier, but it's not just for them. We think it's for people who want to go on and have an orchestral career or a solo career, and that's not the reason to do it either. That's not why everyone should have access. And the other thing that gets me in both countries is it's very financially based. If parents can afford or a family can afford to support a child doing music, then they get to do it. And that's not fair. That's not fair because, and it's not fair from the research point of view, because all the research done for disadvantaged kids says that music education is more effective for them than it is for the kids who may have grown up in an advantaged situation. So I think we're misinformed, and that's what gets me excited about this research. Is it's not telling us we were wrong. It's just telling us that there's a new field of research which is challenging what we think, and we need to look at this again and go, well, maybe some of the reasons why. And talking about standardized testing, we have standardized testing here in Australia, and it's on literacy and numeracy. And across the board in the sort of international levels, we're not improving. If anything, in some of them, we're sliding backwards. And there's these questions being asked by educators, just do more literacy and numeracy. We just need to get better at it. When I look at this research and say, well, if a child can't hear the difference in the sound, then there's absolutely no way that they can improve their language. We're missing this vital key point that used to be part of our education, and we've shifted our thinking. And I think my work and my passion comes from the idea of informing everybody about this new research so that they can make better decisions for our children.
So I'm trying to kind of close this up and think in terms of, I mean, it's great that we have the research. It's great that we have intermediary people with expertise in music as well as neuroscience and the ability to communicate that, be able to bridge the gap. I mean, even a branded talk, an idea-centric talk like a TEDx, is great because it breaks, scientists out of their silos. It forces them to use plain English so that the rest of us can really understand very quickly in a short talk. My question is, are there some examples out there of maybe not particularly advantaged school districts that are somehow finding a way to fund or raise money for arts or do this in a normal situation, not just a financially elite place? Can you give us a little bit of hope and kind of bring it home here?
Absolutely. Well, 2 years ago, I was incredibly privileged to go and visit the Harmony Project in LA, which is doing exactly that. It's looking at music as a way of reducing gang violence. That's originally where they started. But what they're seeing is an absolutely extraordinary number of students who never would have contemplated or had the capacity to go to college being involved in the Harmony Project for 5 to 7 years. And these kids are going off to college. They're changing their pathways of life. They're changing their lives. In England, there's a wonderful school called Feversham School in Bradford. Their school was in special measures, which means that the school was doing very, very badly. A really wonderful educator and a principal got together and said, look, we're already in special measures. There's all this research that says we have music education that can improve what's happening for these kids. And they've turned their school around. In 1 year of music education, it's come out of special measures. It's being featured all over the UK as an example of how you can really shift very quickly. A whole school culture, and academically, socially, everything has moved in this school.
In 1 year.
Here in Australia. In 1 year.
In 1 year.
Yeah.
That sounds almost too good to be true. That sounds like a Hollywood movie kind of thing based on a true story, but you wonder how that is. So, hey, Talk Universe, I'm going to get web addresses for all of these from Anita so that those of you that are, principals and school educators and on school boards and music teachers and just regular teachers, that you can get your hands on this stuff, because we really want to, resourceful. Sorry to interrupt you, Anita. What were you going to say there?
I was just going to say, in Australia, as you mentioned at the start, there's about to be a huge national campaign that's led by our ABC broadcaster, and it's going to look at raising the question of music education and equity. And I'm working with a school which is a very disadvantaged school in Western Australia, and it's got so many issues that it's dealing with, but they've given every child in grade 4 a musical instrument, and that school has has just turned a corner. It's been absolutely incredible. And we've been lucky enough to follow them through and see what's actually happened. And it's not just the students, it's the teachers, it's the parents. It affects the whole community. It changes an entire community just by one activity. So there's examples everywhere, and they're just 3 across 3 different countries, but it's happening everywhere. And I want to be also able to be highlighting those different success stories so that, as you say, other principals can say, look, I want to give that a try. I have no idea where to start. What should I do? Who can I contact?
We've been enjoying an extended deep dive, extra deep dive with Anita Collins, Dr. Anita Collins, and her talk is called What If Every Child Had Access to Music Education from Birth. You can find out more about that a little bit later in the show, but right now we're going to pivot over to you. Finally, Talk Universe. We're going to come back with you in just a moment for the Blitz Round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with Anita Collins. It is time for the Blitz Round. I've got time for just a couple of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of your actual branded talk. Anita, are you ready?
Sure.
All right. First off, are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
An improviser.
Improviser in terms of the talk, not just the music. That's a kind of a musical sounding question, I
I'm
must
not
say.
I'm not a musical improviser at all.
Neither am I.
But when it comes to talking, it's about feeling the room and seeing what's happening and moving with them.
Okay. So I love these questions. This is my first musical blitz round for fellow musicians. So did you walk out on stage, not given a performance of a musical type, but it's a different kind? Did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
I was absolutely nervous, but also I knew this was a pivotal point in my life. I understood the power of TED and TEDx, and this was my chance to have my idea worth sharing, and it was amazing experience. Was it a different kind of nerves than if you were musically performing or doing anything like that to be able to speak? No, for me it was exactly the same. It's exactly the same feeling before you walk on stage for a recital or a big performance that I conducted. It's the same excitement mixed with dread, but also, it's those two things together which make the best kind of performance because everything's heightened. What's a tip, technique, or a tool that helped you? Speak slower. And my coach for TEDx, she just said, don't be afraid to be you. And every single time I do a talk, even coming into this, I hear her voice in my head saying, don't be afraid to be you. What's the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk? I don't know. I had a cold when I did my talk, so all I was just trying to do was make sure that my voice actually worked. But no, it was just everything slowed down as well. The whole world started just slowed down, and I went, this is the moment. Just go on stage. You've done this. You've practiced it 1,000 times. Just do it. We've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Dr. Anita Collins. Her talk is called What If Every Child Had Access to Music Education from Birth. And if you want to check out her talk, I would highly encourage you to do it. If you're an educator, if you are a principal, if you are a parent, anyone, check this out. It's important. What if every child had access to music education from birth? You can type that in, or if you don't want to type that in, go to BeTheTalk.com. We will have that on our show notes page, as well as I would like you to connect with Anita and what she's doing. And you can do that at her website, AnitaCollinsMusic.com. AnitaCollinsMusic.com. We'll have a link for that as well. And we'll be back in just a moment with Anita Collins for the final word of advice. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected
at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with Dr. Anita Collins. What is your final word of advice to Talk Universe?
To think big is, in many cases in our society, not okay. And I think, if anything, we've got to think as big as something can possibly be in order to do great work exactly where we are. So the advice would be, just as one of our sayings is, which is think global but play local.
Dr. Anita Collins, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and giving your wisdom to Talk Universe today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.